Toby, welcome to the WP Minute.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's my pleasure to be here. The pleasure's all on this side of the table.
We were just chatting before we hit record. Apparently, we met at PrestigeConf, which happened eons ago. So you've been in this game for quite a while. So for folks that don't know, what is it that you do in WordPress?
Yeah, I've been in it for 20 years, I think, now. I think WordPress is 21 years old or something like that. But I run an agency called The Mighty Mo. Been doing it 18 years at The Mighty Mo WordPress. For the first few days, we were doing Flash. And about 1 month into The Mighty Mo, Steve Jobs came out and said, Flash is dead. And so I'm like, okay, Flash is dead. What's next? And so I started doing WordPress right that. I had actually tried Joomla and Drupal on DreamHost's one-click install at that time. And I couldn't figure it out. I was not like a trained coder by any means, but I knew like HTML and FTP, and I knew Flash. But WordPress, I could get going. And then like, this is what the amazing thing about WordPress was to me, was that like you could go in, edit code in like your template. Once you figured out where the theme was, you could like edit it and see the change, which was like revolutionary, you know? Like, it was so cool.
I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile. So the Mighty Mo, I'm seeing you started out as developer, then went to CTO, then went to president.
Yeah.
Explain that one to me.
There's no explanation. I've owned the company the whole time. I think it's been like my idiot attempt at marketing.
Sure.
And so I have, there's no good reason for me to be. I'm legally the president of the company, but
gotcha.
Sometimes I've been afraid, I think, like just owning a business, I'm always afraid of like what I'm thinking, like what, when people talk to somebody, am I better off being the CEO president, or am I better off being like, no, just talk to me. I'm a regular marketer guy, like at the company. And I just like that entry point. I'm never sure like what's best, you know?
Oftentimes it's best not to even tell anybody what you do in the tech space, because then they start asking you all kinds of questions to see if you can solve their pain points. At least that's what I found.
Can you fix my Wi-Fi?
Yeah. No, man, I do websites, and I'm barely holding on with that.
Exactly.
We connected because I recently put out our weekly newsletter, and oftentimes the WP Minute newsletter will have like a little opening salvo, a little personal message, and really starting to get stuck in with AI. And I'm really starting to wonder how this is impacting small business, what I call small business web design agencies. You might have a different label for it. I think there's ultimately two camps. You're either deathly afraid of this stuff, or you don't think anything is happening. At least that's what I see on Twitter. Either people just brush this off as like, it's not even really a thing, or people are like, oh my God, we're all going to lose our jobs. I'm hoping to be somewhere in the middle where we can find efficiencies with this stuff, leverage it, at least for the next few years. I don't really have a crystal ball beyond that. And I'm curious, your take on your 2 decades in this space. Is it impacting you? How are you thinking about this impacting your business, if at all? Where do you sit with AI in your agency?
1 year ago, I was scared to death. So scared that I hired a full-time SEO guy who still works for the Mighty Mo. But we branched off. We're going to sell marketing services rather than development services, because I was so scared of AI. This was a year or so ago. And we've since sold some SEO, and it's been a neat journey. Like, be like, okay, now we're doing SEO too. Cool. But what I've learned, so here's an example. I'm building a project management plugin with AI, with ChatGPT basically, and Copilot. And what I've learned in that is like AI is a decent like junior level dev assistant, and like maybe mid-level. Like it can help you like organize your thoughts and your code, but like I'm no longer afraid of it. Like so. It's saved me hundreds of hours so far on this project, but someone without deep WordPress knowledge would have never been able to build this pretty basic plugin that I built with it, in 100 hours time using AI exclusively, So I'm no longer afraid of it. It's changing the industry though, without a doubt. Like, and I think too, first of all, I think you adapt or die. That's, because you've been in this so long, I have so much respect for people like you who've been in the game, any game for 15 years. You have to adapt. And if you don't adapt, you're gone. And so, yeah, it's changing. Like I see so I deal with small businesses and small nonprofits, and I've done that for 18 years at the Mighty Mo. And we are losing very new businesses to AI and Wix and Squarespace. Without a doubt, we're losing them. Like they're no longer calling me to build their sites. And when I talk to them and I'm like, yeah, it's going to be like 10 grand. They're like, whoa. I was thinking like 300. And I'm like, well, like we're not a great fit probably. And so that's a common conversation with, incoming leads. But the people who still want to hire us, if you picture this, like, let's say you're a mid-level marketing manager at a small to mid-sized company. So you're an employee and you're going to put your career on the line. You're going to hand your career to someone like me or to AI. The problem with this is if you hand it to me and you pay more, but like I'm now if I screw up, I'm at fault, not you. If you hire AI to do it and they screw up, you're at fault as the marketing manager. And so like, I think like these, there's like a very human thing, like these mid-level people who work at the employees, part of their game is like offshoring risk to others so they can survive in that role and get promoted. And like AI is not good for them, because then they're putting their butts on the line.
Yeah. Ever since I started podcasting, when I ran my agency, it was to learn how to run an agency and quite literally see, what the market was doing, like understand how people were selling sites and, what the landscape looked like. The thing back then, when I started the Matt Report, 15 years ago, it was, what are we going to do about the $500 website? Right. That was like a question that I had on repeat on a lot of my podcast episodes because, that was the thing. Like when I started my agency, people would come to me like, I got $500. I'm like, $500? Like, what's happening here? Like, what do you expect to do? And, fast forward 20 years later, it's almost like the same concern. So it's like we've seen this hype cycle come around, right? Small budgets. Then theme forests, people are like, oh, I could just buy a theme. You can't do it for a few $100. And then the adoption or the rise of, like, say, like Elementor, Beaver Builder, Divi. And people are like, oh, we got this page builder. Like, can't you do it for $300? But now it's like, we've got AI. Can't you just do it for $300? So I'm trying to temper that expectation. Maybe an expectation is the wrong word, but I'm trying to temper like this outlook for AI. Like, okay, let's all just exhale for a second. I think professional services is still a thing. And what it might do is maybe bring down the real high end to us, the Tobys and the Matts of the world who are running just a good, solid small business web design agency, right? Maybe, our friends at the higher end might see a bit of a hit, and those bigger brands might reach out to you and I, or those of us listening, going, you know what? We've got a big budget for you, small budget for us. Yeah. Let's work together. Have you seen any of the market shift? It sounds like the entry level is shifting, but have you seen any of the higher end of the market shift to your favor?
Yeah. So at least one of your podcast guests who owned a big agency in Minneapolis has gone through this. And I know this because I know some of the people who work there.
Yeah.
And I worked with another agency in town who was getting these high level, I was collaborating on big corporate clients with them. Mm-hmm. And I know for a fact that both these companies are like in my way getting way bigger fish than I could ever get and I ever want to get maybe, but like they are firing people. Like they're that's how I know they're getting squeezed because and my hunch is that like a lot of the work that these high-end companies do is prototyping, prototyping. Hey, we have I'm Target Corp and I have this idea. Can you build something for us? And you have a lot of, and now they just go to like, potentially, I could see a scenario where to prototype, just like, let's say you have a small team at Target, you're like, you guys go to this AI tool and build something in the next 6 weeks or whatever. To me, that seems really reasonable, like from Target's perspective. And then you bring that to the agency maybe. But
Toby's saying Target because Target's pretty big in Minneapolis, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're the biggest.
Yeah. I remember at Prestige Conf. It's also very cold where you are, and
it's cold right here where I'm at right now. I'm in the basement.
And I remember walking around, and you have just skywalks, right? Is that what it's called? And they're just skyways, and they're connected. They connect all these buildings downtown. And I remember being like, I need to work out, but I forgot my gym clothes. And somebody was like, oh, there's a Target right across the way. Just walk over here. Take a left, do a right, go down these stairs. And I did that, and I'm walking around. I'm like, it says Target. But what's up with all these offices? It's like, where's the store? Right. And it was just like the corporate headquarters. And I'm like, and they're like, oh no, the store's down the other way. So it's deeply rooted down there. I've been practicing and demonstrating the power of something that you just said, which was prototyping. And this is where I see the advantage of AI for WordPress, at least now in the short term, is to build on top of WordPress. So I recently did a video of just building with Bolt, something that connect your traditional headless WordPress, something that folks would have knocked on our doors 10, 15 years ago to say, please build this headless WordPress. The budget's 50 grand or 100 grand. Can you do it? I did it in minutes with Bolt, building a React app and just leveraging the wonderful WordPress REST API. I'm not a developer. I'm just a power user, right? I kind of know the stuff, so I know what to ask for. And I was like, man, this is really powerful. And the positive side of me is looking at WordPress going, there's definitely an advantage here. WordPress is great for publishing. Whether you agree with Gutenberg or not, it's still a great publishing platform. And now with AI, we can build stuff on top of it to extract that data, right? Build those apps we've always wanted to build, but have WordPress as the back end. Do you have any future forward thinking about those opportunities with WordPress that aren't websites, like something else we can do?
Well, yeah. I mean, I told you I'm building this project management app for one, but so I've built it with core WordPress functionality, no React, no modules, nothing like that. It's just straight up, API. Not even the WP API. We're talking a plugin and a theme, and I think that, and I'm planning on releasing it as a SaaS, on top of WordPress, running a plugin and theme and some sort of multi-tenant, blah blah blah. But I think like when you think of WordPress headless, I mean, endless possibilities. Think of this. Like I was thinking today. The WordPress dashboard is so confusing. Onboarding is so confusing. And I submitted a ticket to WordPress core 3 years ago to add a button. So you go to posts, you can add new, pages add new. I wanted a menu add new. And I submitted a ticket. Earlier this week, I got a reply saying it's been merged into another ticket. I go, great, something's happening. I go to that ticket, 11 years old. Yeah. And there's been no conversation for 11 years. I'm going, this is just an add new menu button. And so like, if you think of this WordPress dashboard, so confusing. I go in there, I'm in there hours every day. And sometimes I have trouble finding the plugins menu on the left side. Cause I'm like, gosh darn it, where is the plugins on this site? Cause like it's pushed up or down and there's colorful depending on the site. Yeah. So like, I'm just thinking like, let's just say you wanted to attack Wix or WordPress.com as like a SaaS app, like, endless possibilities. Like just had this WordPress. Yeah, we're just going to build a way better UI, and maybe it's less feature rich, but it's like way better. Like,
I wonder. Matt Mullenweg has often said, or at least a few times said that he's always seen Gutenberg as a bigger open source project than WordPress. And even with the temperature of WordPress in the room these days, and some of Matt Mullenweg's decisions, I'm still trying to unpack that, because I think for one thing, like a lot of the things he says as, say, positive outlooks for WordPress, he's always when he says those things, he's always projecting. So like WordPress as the operating system of the web, which he said, many years ago. Like I think we're finally kind of maybe seeing that. And then when he said Gutenberg as a bigger project than WordPress, I was like, how? In the back of my head, I'm like, what? How do you think of that? But now maybe with like AI and what WordPress might morph into, which is like just a database of content that you can publish in, I'm like, well, maybe he's onto something with this Gutenberg thing.
Can I just weigh in there? Because Matt's been an inspiration to me personally. I've never met Matt. I have worked directly for Matt, but I've never met him. And so I've only interacted with him, I think, twice in my life, but I followed him, and he's been an inspiration for me. I started out, when I came to move to Minneapolis in 2003, I stumbled into WordPress. That led me to the open source community, and Matt was truly a leader of the open source community back then, and probably still is today. What I think Matt, he's been inspiring to the community too. Like whether or not you like Gutenberg or whatever, that was like a tipping point where a lot of people got excited and a lot of people got pissed. But I go, great, you have a vision, let's go.
Right.
A couple weeks ago or months ago, he was at, I think, WordCamp Japan, and somebody in the audience was like, hey, what's the future of WordPress? And his response was, it was really flip. It was just like, oh, AI. And I'm like, that's not anything to grab. That's not inspiring. It's not interesting. It's not a feature. It's not, like, I would have loved for him to be like, we're going to make it so you can click any block in WordPress and use AI to generate content. Like, something like that would be really interesting. And I just think that right now, like you just described a future of WordPress that is one possible future of many, but there's no clear direction. Everybody has a different direction. Like Juiced is forming this new nonprofit thing, and I'm going like, this isn't a direction for WordPress. This is like something nobody who uses like no end user cares about your like nonprofit or organization that's going to govern WordPress. Nobody cares about that out in the wild. Like, you know, people like you and me might care about it, but when Matt did the breaking changes for WordPress, really with the Gutenberg editor, I go, that's a vision, at least, right? You know, And by the way, he did that years ago, probably when you were getting started with the update to the dashboard when they moved the navigation from the top to the left side, and there's been other things in there like auto push updates. Like I feel like anytime you have friction, you know, you're like at least you're onto something with some meat, like
you
know, when it comes to features.
I mean, you know, my feedback with that, like anything where the real issues are just human issues, it's not the software or the feature, it's that nobody will take charge to make a decision. Like we have to move forward, so somebody has to make a decision. And obviously we all thought the organization was structured slightly different than what has been exposed through all of this stuff. But up until that point, you're thinking like, okay, well, who else is going to move this thing forward? On one hand, we can't say things like Wix and Squarespace and all these other platforms, Webflow, are eating WordPress's lunch and be upset about that. But then on the other hand, do nothing about it, right? And then just like drill into a more, you know, developer focused, you know, sort of mindset, like, oh, we don't need all these tools. I mean, God, you and I heard this same thing when like you saw a theme forest or you saw page builders, you're like, nobody wants this stuff. This is all done wrong. This is not how you build a website. And then literally it's how you build a website. Right?
Yeah. That's a great analogy because I actually see AI as comparable to the theme builders like Beaver Builder, Elementor, because it immensely changed our workflows, but in some ways it made us more valuable as developers, like at the same time, because anytime end users get confused, I see dollar signs. Like, you know, like, and, you know, and AI is just a tool that we're going to use and it's going to change things. But you know, AI needs us more than AI needs us more than we need AI. And, so like, as long as you're willing to like, figure it out as a business owner and, you know, get a little lucky, hopefully, with the direction you go, you know, I think we'll be all right, you know?
So aside from the project that you're working on, well, let me take a step back. What's the size of your agency? How many folks work with you? How many contractors? How do you structure the agency?
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like we've grown, and I want to say 2015, I had a CEO and I had like, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 8 full-time employees, something in there. Now I scaled back for a number of years here. I was like just me. Then it was me and one other developer. And then it was me and a SEO guy relatively recently. In January, I hired 6 part-timers because I'm like, I don't want to be the main point of contact every time. And so I hired a bunch of people to kind of so I hired a project manager who is just, I mean, I don't know if everybody's going to get this lucky, but to me, the project manager has, the work that she's doing is changing my business, like in really profound ways.
Yes.
And I'm able to see opportunities that I didn't see before. And this is just since January, and just the talents and skills and just efficiencies and whatever. I
remember the project manager role at my agency being one of like the hardest at the stage of the business that we were at. Again, this is a different era of like building websites, but like that investment was hard because it was like, oh, wait, we should really be hiring another developer or another designer, like, because then we can do more projects. But then the bottleneck was always either myself, or I ran the agency with my father, so it was either his time or my time. And what were we doing instead of selling? We were managing the projects. But it was one of those really difficult decisions, like bring somebody on board that isn't immediately a billable role, more of like that management role. But wow, once you had the person in place and they were up to speed, it was just infinitely better.
Well, let me ask you, because a few podcasts ago, you had reminisced about when you brought on, so project manager is one thing, but it seemed like you said you brought on an account manager. And that's really scary for me right now. How did that work? Tell me a little bit about that.
He was multifaceted, Dan. So he was a project manager, but then he would also, because we were a 4 or 5 person shop and servicing mostly small businesses at the time, so your margins were very thin, as you know, with like payroll and all this stuff. So then eventually as he got better in the role and we understood the projects that we were delivering, he would also go back to the customer and say like, hey, it's been a year since we've chatted. You're on our monthly maintenance and support plan. Like, what else can we do for you? Right. So it was just like a very incremental thing.
Yeah.
But it's a utility person, and it's very hard to find. It's very hard to find that role in, I guess, any business where you can also like think as a founder and understand, what the client needs at the same time, and then get this technology thing. I mean, you don't have to be deep in any of it, but you just have to understand that world, and that's what makes a great project manager or / AE.
And I think too, like all this, when you're running a business, every hire should point to more money. Like at the end of the day, in theory. One thing that was mind-blowing when I hired my project manager, so I was doing the work, and I would do so many not favors, but you're an existing customer. Sure, I'll just do that. It'll take me 5-10 minutes. No, I wouldn't charge. Once the project manager came on, she's like, so they want this work. What do you want to bill for it? I was like, what? Oh, crap. And so she's basically paying for herself just by asking that question continually.
That's something that goes under the radar. And I tell this to a lot of, freelancer friends that have reached out and they're like, hey, just like struggling to get this business. And it's like, well, how many websites have you, launched for clients? And whatever it is, 5, 15, 50, you simply just have to ask, right? Because you ship them and then you think, okay, they're shipped. Now I need to go find a new one. And it's like, well, you don't have to. You could make sure that they're paying you in some consultative fee, whether you're actually maintaining their site or you've got them locked in for a few hours a month to just talk about their sites. You should be having those conversations, because the worst thing, not to go on a soapbox rant, because this is your interview, but the worst things that can happen to an agency is when that customer, if they're paying you monthly and you're not talking to them and you're not reaching out, that's the worst thing. Because if they're running into an issue and they're not telling you about it, the worst thing is like they start asking somebody else, like, hey, this guy, we've been paying Matt $100 a month, $200 a month, whatever it is. And I have this freaking problem. He's never asking me. I don't know how to talk to him. I don't know how to explain it. And then they go and they find somebody else. And then suddenly you get the phone call or the email like, hey, we're canceling the account. Yeah. You're like, whoa, what happened? I thought everything was good.
Yeah.
And that's the worst.
As soon as they talk to someone else, you can almost guarantee that person's going to say, oh, that's way too much.
Correct.
No matter what.
Correct.
Doesn't matter what it was.
Correct. And, that's an interesting thing, because I think and I'm not in the agency game, but I talk to people all the time about it, but we have we're in this unfair position where, just like you said earlier, Squarespace user says, wasn't it only $300 to do this? I think when you think of yourself as a consumer and you have to hire a plumber, a landscaper, a contractor, whatever it is, you're exposed to that more often. Like the customer's exposed to that, like, I gotta find somebody local to come do this thing for me. And what we learn the lesson of you get what you pay for a lot faster in the real world. Where in the web world, it's only like, if you're a company, it's like every maybe 3-5 years, you're thinking critically of, okay, we got to redo this website. So you're not exposed to those lessons of you get what you pay for. You just go, we need to do this thing. It's a task. Just find the cheapest bid.
Yeah.
Am I crazy about thinking of it like that? Like we just don't get those reps in with our customers enough.
Yeah. But I think there are some customers that'll never come around to paying. Like that's
right.
That's a fact. But the ones that learn the lesson, they touch the stove, they learn it. They usually make really good long-term customers, I find. Also, like there was this is just more examples of how AI will not be helpful and how we'll still continue to exist. A few years back, there's a deodorant company called Lumi Deodorant, and they have ads on TV now and stuff. But like, their operations officer, CMO, came to me, just called out of the blue because I do WordPress, and they were like, local kind of, and so they found me. They called, and like I started helping them. This is like just an example of like, again, how we're gonna have jobs if we can adapt, and like, so I just started. They're like, hey, we need to like import some users. I was like, okay, whatever. They had WooCommerce, and bottom line is like, it ended up being it turns out they were just like having way too many website sales. Like that was their problem. And the CEO came to me and she's like, should we close the site down? Like it's just a huge headache and failure. And I'm looking at it like, and she didn't have the purview. I mean, she did business wise, but like, I'm looking at this like, you have no idea how unique your situation is. Like, but anyway, bottom line is like, AI would never, they probably wouldn't right now that they sold for who knows how much to, some huge company, now they've been bought and sold a couple of them, at least once. But like, huge payout for them at the end of the day, but like AI could not have helped them, and I don't think a big agency would have been helpful either. Like it was just so happened that I was small enough with enough of experience. Cause like I came in I want to say it was like for $2,000 a month, I think I can help you for the next 6 months. And I was way off by that, by the way, but like a big agency, $2,000 is not going to get you in the door.
Yeah.
And so it ended up being, I ended up coming on as CTO after a while and was just like, we need to rethink this whole thing. And we ended up moving to Shopify, but like, I think there's green, as green pastures as there ever has been in this crazy world.
Sure. Another lesson that I find interesting that I think, at least from my experience, interested to hear your experience, but I think a lot of agencies after X amount of years, and this is something that evolves. Like I think in the early days, you're learning this every month, and then it stretches to every 6 months, and then every year, then every other year, and then every 5 years, and maybe every 10 years. But you start to learn like a process of what you can deliver. Right? Earlier when we started the show, you said you focus on a lot of small business and nonprofits. I love the nonprofit vertical because even that is huge. Like nonprofits for who? Like what are they serving? Like is it donations? Like what's it look like? So I'm curious if you can paint the picture of what your process looks like when you're selling to a customer. Is it A, B, and C? Pick this Mrs. or Mr. Customer, like pick one of these choices. Do you have a wheelhouse where you say, hey, we're really good at nonprofit donation websites, but if you wanted us to build a membership site, we don't do that. Like that's not in our wheelhouse. How do you like refine and fine tune your machine at the agency?
Machine is way overstating what it is. It's really me taking. So I always try to get on the phone with people first of all. It starts with an email. Usually, our main marketing channel is SEO, and it has been forever. And so we get all our leads from SEO pretty much. And so an email comes in. Sometimes they'll call, and I try. At this point, I get so much spam email and phone that I kind of I let it go to voicemail first, kind of, or let the AI. I use an AI on my Android phone to screen them. That's another example. That's a good use of AI.
Sure.
And how I use it in my daily workflow. But, I get the package thing. We used to sell packages and we've been testing it out with SEO. But what we do now is like, really, I don't know how other people do it really. Like for me, it's totally arbitrary. Like really at the end of the day, I'm trying to get a sense through conversations, like how big of a project are we talking? And part of that is the technology and the requirements, but the other part is like, how many layers of bureaucracy do we have to fight through to approve some text? How easy are you to converse with? Like, are you putting up a fight on everything I say, or are you like, Toby, that's brilliant, let's do it? You know, like, to me, though, there are costs that I add arbitrarily based on my feeling about it. So, like, I was talking to someone the other day, this is like a week ago, and I got a sense right away. And so I was like, yeah, usually our budgets are, let's say, 5 to 10 grand, whatever I told them. Very small, nonprofit, for-profit, but they're like kind of a startup locally here. It was clear right away that that was off the table. And so I was like, well, I also do this other thing that is actually really cool, and it's way cheaper, but it's different. And the gist of it is I'm going to sit down with you for 5 or 6 hours total over a few weeks, and we're going to build your site together. And you control how expensive it is, because there are lots of shortcuts we can take a lot in that process. And they did that, and I actually met with them yesterday. It was fantastic. And like,
Yeah.
So me as like a small business owner, I have that flexibility to kind of like do that. And I'm always looking, I'm desperate to close deals all the time. And I always have been. And this is like a fear of dying. This is like what it is.
Yeah, go into that, because I think a lot of people don't realize that, everyone online, we're all fighting for survival in this game. Like, even if you see somebody with a 7-figure, 8-figure agency run rate, like, yeah, agency life is fun and it can be very profitable, but it's also like one paycheck away from death. So explain what that means to you.
I mean, I don't know if this was like my upbringing. I grew up poor or whatever, but like we all kind of grew up poor. If you talk to people, we all grew up poor.
Yeah.
But like, I am scared to death that I'm not going to be able to pay the mortgage next month, even though I've paid it every month for the last 472 months without major issues. You know? So like, here's an example. Like, if you came to me and you were like very reasonable and calm and nice and kind, you're like, I have X amount of dollars, we might be able to make a deal. You know, like, that's how desperate I am. I'm not going to jam you into our process. But like anything, if you come in a way that rubs me the wrong way, well, maybe we can't make a deal. Like,
or add another few zeros to the end of that.
Yep. There was one person I was co-working with that she hired me to help her. She has just a brilliant idea for a startup, and she's like, I really just need this website, and it was kind of like a membership thing. So you can kind of envision that, where people pay for a membership, and kind of like Upwork, but for a different vertical. And I was like, yeah, I think I can do that. And I was doing this thing where we would kind of meet up. I would do it just hourly, so she was getting like a great deal. I wasn't doing a lot of scoping. We were meeting in person. I was scoping. And her business partner was like, what is this charge? And so after that, her costs skyrocketed.
Right.
I was like, okay, I can't meet with you anymore. We're going to need to scope stuff out. We're going to.
Yeah.
And I ended up making more money, did less work. I made more money for less work in that scenario.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she was happier or not as happy. I don't know that it mattered. Maybe it was better. I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, you have those conversations. And, I think I've always tried, say the phrase like blue collar digital worker, where like in your example, like you're nice, I'm nice. It's all about like, what are those expectations? What are those requirements that you need from me? If you're not going to beat me up and call me on a Saturday afternoon or in the middle of the night about, something that you told me you were just experimenting with, it's the worst customers from back in the day was this like, I have no budget. I want it now. And, sometimes you'd be like, okay. They would like scale it back and be like, all right, we're not going to be making, any money. I promise, like, don't do all this thing. And then they start like going gangbusters with an e-commerce store. Like I vividly remember Saturday, a particular customer from way back who did all the same. He was hard-nosed. We got along. He worked me with the budget, and then my thing was like, okay, you can work me on the budget, but I'm going to scale back support. I'm going to scale back feature set. We're going to use, I didn't tell him, but like, we're going to use these plugins. I mean, I would say like, we've got these repeatable code that we could use, this is way back in the day. And then like Saturday would come and he had like this, he was somewhere, I forget, with like in-person event, and he was selling tickets to all these things, and he was freaking out that his website was down. And I'm like, I remember you telling me that this wasn't going to be a thing. Like you weren't going to be making money. You weren't going to be, you didn't require, like you didn't want to pay the $300 a month for hosting or whatever it was for a dedicated server back then. then. You told me you didn't need this.
Yeah. Yep.
And here we are. You
in
just got to have those conversations up front.
And the common red, we have red flags that we develop over as these calls come in and emails.
Sure.
And what the most common immediate red flag is, this is going to be quick and easy.
Yeah.
Like when they're like, I need something done, it's really easy. And I'm always like, if it was easy, you wouldn't be calling me.
Yes.
Like, if it was quick, it'd be done.
Yes.
So why are we talking?
Yes, that's like sales 101. I mean, I can start with that. I can catch myself I'm talking to a contractor about building like a deck, and I'm like, look, this should just be easy.
Right. Right.
As if I know how to pull out a nail gun and start building myself a deck.
Exactly. Here's another example of it can pay to be nice, like to small businesses, but even big ones. But like, I had someone I brought on as a developer. They're like really struggling. They're like a local contractor. They have, a business that's been going for years, but they needed help with their website. And like, I really helped them. I like made it way better and for a very reasonable rate. And then we were hosting them. And then they started calling me on weekends, and I was just like, what is going on? And like, they would break it. Anyway, the bottom line is, they emailed and called. This is just like a month or so ago. And they're like, we're moving to someone else for hosting, like, and we want a refund on the prorated annual contract that they signed. And if they had been nice throughout, I probably would have given the refund. Like if they had been really cool and nice, I mean, that's my inclination to be like, oh yeah, sure, stuff happens. But since they were such jerks, and they continued to be jerks even at the end, like when demanding the refund, like it was how they demanded it more than that they demanded it. And like, just like, no, you're under contract. We do not grant refunds when you sign in. That was my policy. That's my policy. I gave them the policy,
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and being nice doesn't mean you get, stepped on or, you're making less money, because the offset is less stress. Is the way that I see it, right? You want to operate your business with as least stressed as possible, making the most amount of money you can. Like it's a simple formula. It's just, it's
same
hard.
With sales.
It's hard. Same with sales.
Sales
it's hard
described
to
me, you want to push them on price and to the point that they're uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Efficiencies on the back end of the house. We talked about like having the conversations, the pre-sales into the sales, into the delivery process. Do you have a stack you always use, a theme and a set of plugins you use on every single project that lessens the amount of time spent, but then improves those gaps of, or that profitability?
Yeah, I was thinking about this today. We've been so we use Beaver Builder wherever possible. Beaver Builder, if you don't know, is a competitor to, I know you know, Matt, but it's a competitor to Elementor and WP Bakery and that sort of thing. Astra would be a competitor to Beaver Builder in theory. So I did a number of tests a handful of years ago, and I have a blog post that's like my longest blog post I ever written. It was a bunch of A/B tests using Beaver versus Elementor versus Bakery and versus Core. And Beaver Builder performed the fastest from a speed test perspective in that very, non-scientific study, somewhat scientific study that I ran. So we started using Beaver Builder then, and we've just continued. We have we would always start with Beaver Builder for building it. If we have a customer, we do have Elementor sites that we manage that we've onboarded, but if we were to rebuild them, we would definitely switch to Beaver. We generally don't use Git or anything like that because cowboy coding is too negative, like not quite it, but with WordPress, it's like, what are you going to put in Git? Everything's like, you could store the database in Git, I suppose, but you already have backups of that. So we use Managed WP. So first of all, I tried like every backup solution I could get. I wanted like a really robust, like a backup solution that would work every time and that it was easy to restore. And I tried like Backup Buddy for years and bunch of other ones, all the ones that I could think to test. Some were in the cloud, some were not. And I even so Managed WP, we use them for every site. We back up everything in the cloud. We already are running cloud backups on whatever host we're using. We're using SiteGround primarily as the hosting solution. But we're even backing up that on Managed WP just so we have multiple redundancies and whatnot. So I love Managed WP, and since we had that, we've started to use it to send reports, and it's been really nice. And they have a SEO feature in there where you can track up to 100 keywords. I've started selling that. Oh, you want to track some keywords? Great. And basically, we have 2 customers that are basically paying for our Managed WP with keyword tracking. No, and I'm not doing any more work other than the onboarding.
Yeah.
So and from a sales perspective, that's leading to more conversations. They're like,
Sure.
how come my ranking went down? What happened? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's talk.
Yeah. That's great.
So that's on the WordPress end. We use local if we develop locally, but usually we're developing and staging sites on the server.
I like that you. This is a bit of a tangent, but I like that you're still using Beaver Builder, and I think that they've slotted themselves into a space of like a non-hype, reliable page building tool. On paper, I hope that means that they are still running a successful business compared to the giants who will cut cost and be in your face with marketing and ship every new feature, because I've seen this year after year of like, oh, there's a new page builder out. Let's shift the whole business over there. I used Beaver Builder when I was at my agency. I could not understand anyone wanting to take that risk of like, you already have this back catalog of customers you built sites for using XYZ page builder. Now you saw another one that had 2 more features and you were like, let's shift the whole business over there. How does that make sense? But people do it because they're after a lower price. They're after a new feature. They're just getting bored and they're not thinking like scalable business. And that's scary.
But also on the cost end, I know because I led the WordPress user group. Every Wednesday I get together with WordPress developers to co-work. And so we have a lot of these conversations, and I'm always surprised by they're providing plugin licenses without any additional charges. And I'm like, just charge them a few bucks and you've covered at least your fees. There's a lot of businessy. Here, another example is so 2 ways to grow your business. One is to make more money. 3 ways. Make more money. Well, I guess make more money or cut costs. Those are the 2 ways. But if you just look at the making money part, one way to make more money is to sell more stuff. Another way is just to increase fees. And so a year ago, I increased fees across the board, 5.7% on all my customers, without exception.
How did you come up with 5.7?
I just increased my bottom line by 5.7%, basically, without doing any more work.
How did you come up to the number 5.7%?
It seemed pretty mathy. It seemed like if someone pressed me, I could explain it with some bit of math.
Yeah, but there was probably a bigger, here's the flat fee number I'm trying to achieve, and 5.7 across all my customers gets me to that number.
No, not really.
Okay.
I was really I wanted to increase costs because our costs are increasing, and we never increased cost in 18 years, 17 years or whatever.
This was a question I was going to have for you, so this is great.
Yeah, so we never increased costs. I shouldn't say we charged, like I said, we've been charging arbitrarily for basically the same website for 18 years. And, but on the hosting end, we never, I shouldn't say we've charged more, but we never increased cost on existing customers. That just hasn't been a thing. So I just felt we've been at it 18 years. And in my mind, I was like, my salary isn't going up. And so at least if I do this, I can increase my salary by 5.7%, which my wife has been clamoring for a decade. Everyone else is getting raised. You're sitting there not getting a raise, and you're
that's smart of you because once again, if you go into the air quotes real world of business, food, lumber, electricians, plumbers, everything literally going up. And, I feel like a lot of us web designers or agency owners, I should say, but sitting behind a computer, even if you're consulting, a lot of us aren't, we're just absorbing that into our already existing margins, which, it's driven by market demand. I totally get it. More competition, the harder it is, but, standing out is very important. It leads me to one of my final questions here is you mentioned SEO being the biggest marketing factor for you. You have a great podcasting setup. Are you doing podcasting content as well? What other factors help drive traffic to your business?
I think if anything, it's relationships that I built over 18 years in the business. I don't think my, I have some YouTube videos out there. I've done a lot of LinkedIning stuff, but the leads that I get that are not SEO are like an old friend who's like, hey, I work at a marketing agency here and we need a WordPress person. So we just closed one of those. I have a buddy was at the coffee shop the other day, and not the other day, a couple months ago, and he just chatted up someone next to him. And they're like, yeah, we need a website. And they've become a client of ours. It's like sort of. Yeah. I've been not good. I have intended to be good, but I've been failing miserably at other marketing efforts.
Yeah. No, that's great. And referral, obviously still like the number one driver. Once again, is AI doing that for us?
Right.
Google search isn't doing that for us. It's just putting out a good product, having, something that you aspire to, achieve, right? Like this is why you hire my business. This is how we think. This is how we operate. SEO is working great for you. But still at the end of the day, I'm sure referrals and people like trusting your work and being like, hey, we know another business that needs something. You're the guy.
Yeah. Right? And here's there's going to be someone out there, of course, who's going to be like, no, I can use AI to automate my email marketing. And anyone who's seasoned in this is going to go, not really. Good luck. I mean, maybe if you had an email list of 3 million people, maybe you could land a few deals. But I have a buddy who works at a big SEO agency in town, and his job is to get sales for the agency. So he's marketing like B2B, bigger companies. And he was telling me this isn't even an AI, but I could see AI doing this. But he was saying one of his bosses wanted him to write copy that was very not correct for it was put a big thumbs up in the subject line, that sort of thing. And he's like, that's not really how I want to position it, but that's the sort of thing AI will tell you to do.
Yeah. That's a whole other, soapbox moment for me. But I posted something the other day and somebody tweeted back to me, was like, you didn't sell me in 30 seconds. So I don't really care about this. And I'm like, guy, I've never put out anything that I've I've never published a piece of content trying to sell anybody on anything. You either want it or you don't. Right. And that's why and it wasn't even anything I was selling. It was just one of my tutorials or something. I forget what it was, but, people, I just don't live in that mindset. And I debate this with folks like Mark Szymanski and Kevin Geary, who, might have more of a strategic approach for creating content and doing social. I don't. And I know that's a bad thing, but my only advantage is I haven't given up, where I'm not saying Mark and Kevin would, but I think folks who are just in the growth mindset of optimize the thumbnail, put the keywords in the video, and in the first 5 seconds you have to zoom in and zoom back out. I don't want to do that. Yeah, well, I just want my authentic content. That's it.
Yeah, and you're pointing at something that's unique in the WordPress space. Not unique, but very special about it, and that is that the community is what built WordPress. And
sure,
I give Matt all the props for that. He built an amazing community and continues to maintain it. And Matt Mullenweg is who I'm talking about. But you too. Yeah, I'll put you there too. Honestly, you're one of the pillars of the community. The people who really gather people together to, to think about WordPress deeply. And one of the things that right now that our community is going through is, this recent stuff between Automatic and WP Engine. It points to the strength of the community in a way, and I really hope they figure it out and can get back to building the community up. Because it's been sad. It's been kind of heartbreaking to me but at the same time, I know I have 2 brothers I don't talk to anymore. 2 blood brothers, and I know that stuff happens in very small. As I say, the community, but if it can happen in my family, it can happen here, and I really hope that. I'm really hopeful for the community that will figure it out. And I think Matt will. I really, it's interesting because a lot of my peers here in Minneapolis that I talk to they've lost faith in the WordPress community, and I haven't. There's work to be done, and I'm going to do my little part to do what I can do. And you've been continuing to do that too. And without blame and without expectation, I just kind of, I'm going to, we're still here. Yeah.
TheMightyMo.com. He's Toby. You can find him once again, TheMightyMo.com. Toby, where else do you want folks to go to say thanks?
You can hit me up on LinkedIn, send me a message. Be happy to converse there, and email's great too. So.